the hate for
Move
that to
on
be the point.
because you wanted to talk about. We did want to talk about buying philosophies, I suppose.
Well, I guess so.
At
Yeah.
final point, it's um, there's nothing. I'm not offended by what you did, Ethan. I hope that didn't come across. I guess there's a difference in communication. If I was in your position, I would have communicated my distasteful that differently. But my way of communicating is not more correct than yours. It's just a difference in personality at the end of the day.
Yeah,
But
I wear white
okay,
socks and you don't.
yeah,
Okay.
okay,
All right.
yeah,
All right.
yeah. I might just end that by this point. But yes, moving on to the idea of buying philosophies, which is something you wanted to get into contact with, and
Yes.
might bring back the audience because they're talking about ice cream now.
We just need a respite from this. So let us have this, and then we'll go into the next seg.
Oh, you want me to talk about buying philosophy? Okay, sure. I thought you were going to
Yeah.
talk. So basically, for me, I like. I mean, it's all tied together. My whole point is that there are certain things that people have that prevent them from buying certain things. And again, for me, it's not just a buttoning point. I mean, I have not seen a jacket where I'm like, oh man, I would totally buy this unless that, because usually there are other mitigating circumstances. It could be price. It could be price where um, maybe the jacket that's really expensive also has a low buttoning point. So it's like, okay, that's 2 strikes for that. Don't gonna do that. And in terms of this thing that we talk about, I try and buy everything for the forever purchase now. That is something I've kind of gotten into, and I'm sure Spencer and I will talk about this more on the pod, where we talk about things lessons we've learned from buying vintage, where we're no longer in that stage of like, well, I really want a navy jacket. We're on eBay. There's a 1930s tweed blue jacket. I live in Los Angeles, but I don't have a blue jacket. I'm gonna have to buy this tweed because of that thing. And that leads to a lot of bad purchases. Maybe not just stylistically, but practically speaking as well. And at a certain point, you get to a stage where you build your wardrobe. You have all this kind of things where now you don't have to relent. You don't have to anything. You can literally buy everything that you want, and that's something I've also learned where I can have all 3 things. I can have buttons or silhouette. Let's call it silhouette. I can have cloth, what I want. I can have it in the price point that I want, and all the other aesthetics and details that I want. So I'm able literally to have all of those things happen because I think a big argument would be like, okay, well, if you're that picky, you're going to lose out on a lot of different jackets. But as also we know, lots of makers don't even think about it and do it inherently. So I'm
And
pretty good on
I
that
will
point,
give this,
which lets me have
and
a
yeah, finish your thought, and then I have something.
Well, I was gonna say I feel like I've gotten to an area where like now I don't have an issue building a wardrobe or adding to it with mistakes.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's like Ethan is an incredibly picky player, but
That is
Right.
absolutely correct.
That's the trade-off.
So it's like I agree that I agree with you, Aldous, that maybe Ethan could have worded that, but he is a stubborn as a bunch, and this is
That guy.
how he talks.
It's fair. I'm bloody stubborn too.
But I will say I don't think you talk about rules like these as being limiting, but again, Ethan has and he's patient. Again, that's like
well, that doesn't mean they're not limiting though, right? They are more limiting, but Ethan is looking at so much stuff,
if
and
you
he has so much.
if you have stuff like that, you have a very what it is that you like. And we talked about this in an old episode. Once you have that makes it so easy because it's
exactly
good stuff. I like, and it's not like,
and that's
ooh, like, does this have the lapels I like? Ooh, is this the right cloth? Ooh, is this the right price point? You can just look at something.
That's exactly it. I mean, like Spencer hit on the head here. Where
I think that's correct.
I never have buyer's remorse. At least now, it's taken a long time to get there. But I typically only give things away, in terms of practicality. Where like, okay, I bought this tweed, I love it, but I literally don't wear it because it's too hot. I gave it away. I don't have any guilt about passing things on, even if they were great and they serve everything else that I like. Sometimes I guess, if you want to talk about relenting, sometimes you have to recognize where you are and your comfort and everything, and sometimes you have to give away that tweed 3-piece because you live in Los Angeles and you'll never wear it. And that again is something there where some people kind of disagree. I mean, all this you can maybe you should talk a little bit about how you feel about giving up things or upgrading. Why don't you tell us about that?
Well, if I'm remembering to, because this calls back to something we were talking about earlier in our private chats. What was this? I think what we ended up determining was that I have more guilt, right? When it comes to getting rid of.
Let me clarify for the chat here. Aldous has said that when it comes to giving things up, he feels guilty because he feels loyal to the pieces that he's purchased.
Well, it's not. It's. If you wanted to make a joke of it and make it sound a bit funny, then yes, I suppose you could call it loyalty. But it's more of wasted potential, if that makes any sense. If I have a jacket that's perfectly serviceable and fits me well and I've worn for many years and it's honestly fine, but now as I've evolved in my style, the lapels are maybe not as wide as I'd like them to be, for example, but that's the only thing. And I come across a ring jacket that's doesn't represent a significant improvement in any other aspect other than having broader lapels. I would feel guilty dumping that old jacket for just that reason.
But that's the sunk. Isn't this
think
that
that's
just a
called
sunk
hoarding.
cost fallacy? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't
Yep.
understand. I don't really understand. What I don't get here is you said it's like there's only one improvement. It's lapels. That's an improvement.
Or the sunk. Well, the cost of getting the ring jacket would be however bloody expensive ring jacket
I mean, it's
is.
like I'm
Probably
saying,
more
it's
than
like
what I've ever paid for a jacket.
I don't think that you should fucking max out a credit card on a garment. But I'm saying that if you can comfortably spend the money, why not upgrade? If you like, if you like problem.
Well, then,
I mean,
but staying where I am with a jacket with slightly narrow lapels, I wouldn't spend anything. I wouldn't spend a cent extra. But if I wanted to get that ring jacket, I'd have to pay whatever they cost for the one benefit of
well, you don't.
slightly
I mean, it
wider
doesn't
lapel.
have to be ring jacket. It could be like something you just if it wasn't ring jacket and you just found another had all the details you wanted. That was like I don't know.
Right, but then it would be $125 to get this extra detail when I could have just been
Okay,
happy
how
with that
about if
old
it
jacket
was
for nothing.
$50? Would you do it for 50? But again, that's 50 extra.
Well, once you get down to prices that low, then you're talking about values of money that I can sort of swallow with no repercussions. Then sure,
So it's
at some point,
then it
at
is
some
just
point it's fine,
price.
but it's still the principle. But still, I would be breaking my principles in a way, I suppose. And
There it is.
the issue is at $50, it's a low enough amount of money that sure, why not? But if I was really strict about my principles, I wouldn't buy it. I still wouldn't buy it.
Wow,
That just seems like
that is
neurotic.
crazy.
Like
Yeah, that seems neurotic to me.
It's I mean it's like okay, there's a concept of like, buy it once. Buy it
I
for
once
life.
hoard it forever.
Yeah, no, like buy it
Yeah.
for life. I don't know. I think I like the pursuit kind. I get a dopamine rush from getting
Yeah.
new things. So I just
Yeah, I mean,
It is about instant
um,
gratification.
I
Yeah.
think the rest of us, maybe the rest of us can give their own thoughts on upgrading because I feel like it's a very common thing to do. Like not just in clothing, but like after your first car, right? I mean, yeah, cars can last a long time if you take care of it, but sometimes you want to upgrade your car. Sometimes you want to
Again,
get
it's
a new
I
TV.
don't know her.
It's very common, and let me be clear. I'm not saying that
Cutting
it's
out.
the way I do
I mean,
things, but it's not how I think other
yeah.
people do.
So I think I can speak a little bit to this because
Go
I've
ahead.
been fortunate to work now at two places in the clothing industry, primarily selling tailored clothing. And
I
the
worked at
first
three,
place
so
was Khakis of Carmel, and we used Samuelson was our primary custom maker. It was more made to order than made to measure, to be frank. But I had some great suits I got in there for incredibly low, basically at cost. Great
What's that
flannel
feel like?
stripes and sport coats, wonderful fabrics from all sorts of wonderful mills. I got probably my first tuxedo there. So, and I've only worn it once. But that said, once I went to my current job and I got an improvement on fit, and it fit me way better than the other jackets and suits I had that fit me perfectly okay and fine, and no one would really notice the difference. But I could feel and notice the difference myself. That just kind of made me feel like, wow, I just spent a lot of money on stuff that now I don't like as much. And it did take me a while to like get past that fact and say, you know what? I don't have room in my life for things that I don't have a strong connection to anymore, and I'm okay with letting them go at, you know, dimes on the dollar, and
Yes,
on eBay.
agreed.
And
Agreed.
they're great garments. They weren't destroyed. They didn't have mustard stains on them or anything. It was just like, you know what? I know that there's more clothes I'm going to buy later on in my life in the years ahead. I'm not going to stop wearing clothes. My body definitely is not the same as it was 5 years ago, even when I started this job. So stuff doesn't quite fit as perfectly right now that I was perfectly happy with 5 years ago. So for me, I think I've just kind of come to terms with clothing, for me at least, will be an ongoing expenditure.
Yep.
And I will have things that I've loved.
Mhm.
And at the same time, I will give those things up at some point.
Right.
And I think that's just part of the process. And probably the only thing that I'll keep a long time will be shoes, unless I like lose half a foot or something.
We all do
Jason,
that.
what do you think about it?
Well, so I mean, working at various places in New York City, a lot of places have uniforms, and so I've sold a lot of the uniform stuff that I've had. Like when I was working at Thomas Pink, I've sold like every Thomas Pink shirt, every Thomas Pink jacket or suit that I had, just because at the time they were nice, but looking at them now, I'm like, they got shoulder pads, like rope shoulders, and they're like too tight.
Yeah.
So I mean, I've upgraded then, and then now I wear, all of my custom suits. You didn't see me, but I did a hair flip. I wear all my made to measure suits
heard
that
it.
I make with
I would like
Dave.
to point out that I think there's a difference in setting. At least according to my philosophy and the way I see things.
With your
If you
eyes?
did
Oh,
with my inner mind and all the wanderings, and I go.
The
"Oof."
mind's
Anyway,
eye.
mind's eye, yes.
Mhm.
Yeah, if you sold the garment and thus created a hole there that needed to be filled again, yes, and you could find a jacket with that remaining money, then yes, sure, I that's fine to me. It's the
well,
idea of
here's the
just
thing. I still spend more money on clothing. I practically on like eBay. No one wants Thomas Pink stuff because it's like
yeah, but
garbage.
realistically, there isn't much return on selling stuff on eBay. So again, that's a different issue. You still it
Yeah,
would be
but
better, I guess, but you'd still end up with
yeah.
a deficit there, and that would be a problem for the reasons I outlined. At least for me.
But yeah, I mean, I think, like you said, I definitely see it better. Like when you sell something and then you immediately have a hole there. You know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But you
Shut
want
up,
to get it
Lovely. Filling a
filled.
good hole.
But I think what Kiyoshi has said about you just sometimes you buy something and then you sell off the thing that you just had. That's a very common thing that literally happens.
Oh yeah, it's
you know?
absolutely very common. I know I'm in a minority,
And the thing is,
yeah.
it comes with this idea that, when you look, this is my philosophy now, I'll talk about my thing. It's like, when you look at it, you definitely noticing. I'm very, as Spencer said, I'm very, very picky because I know a lot about what I like from a jacket, not just in terms of buttoning point, again, lapels and everything like that. And
Gotta make sure the
I'm
buttons are
conscious of it at all times. Maybe not neurotically, but I know, like, okay, this is a serviceable jacket, like you said, all just things have to be serviceable. But to me, when you find something that's it's inherently better or more in line with what I want, I absolutely need to get rid of the other thing because I don't want to have something that detracts, even if it's something that I don't care about as much. Maybe it is lapels, something I've softened up on over the year. Well, not really softened up. I really like. I've had 30s lapels, I've had 60s lapels, I've had modern lapels. That's something that I just prefer, but I don't really dive deep on. But sometimes there is something that just tickles your fancy better, and
Ooh, I
you
love a
buy
good
it because then now you've noticed something that detracts from your jacket. Maybe the only thing is that your jacket is not that jacket, and so you want it because everything in your closet should bring you joy. And I think a lot of us here don't really think about
tag Marie
being
Kondo.
loyal. They don't think about being loyal to the old clothes, or it's like a minuscule thing. We just think of it as terms of this is what makes us happy and this is what we like. And in terms of how picky I am, I have gone through a lot of stuff where I buy something and I realize I don't like this about it, or I'm conscious of what I don't like about it. Could be jacket length. Maybe, I thrifted the jacket from the 60s, right? Buttoning point, whatever, but maybe it's a little bit short and I can't not think about that. Like I can't think about how it's hitting, it's only up to my wrist, which is too short. And you could argue that that is a big deal. But, whenever I have those feelings, it's like, okay, I need to be able to have my clothing and not think anything bad of it at all. And when you get older, when you start buying way more things, you start to get to that stage where, okay, everything you're buying is like where it's at. That's why I don't have buyer's remorse and I love wearing everything in my closet. I think one of if we talk about what I've felt on, that's similar to you, and Kiyoshi brought it up, is shoes. I think before, buying old Allen Edmonds was like the only way. I didn't even think about stuff like, I don't care about the Vamp, I don't care about that kind of stuff. But then, as I read in my giant article, I'm like, you know what? Like, there's something about this like lamp business that I'm really into. Like, there's something about like buying like the Aberdeen Last of Alden that is like calling out to me. And when I saw that thing, I could not unsee it, and I knew that I would just have to replace my Allen Edmonds Graysons. I didn't have to wait until they literally fell apart or they got a hole. I was like, you know what? I am going to
When
not
you
like
know, you
wearing
know.
this until that happens. Yeah,
Stop
exactly.
quoting Hamilton.
I remember. Yeah, I
Yeah, my
remember when I
strength
had
is
like.
that I would
Go ahead.
pause.
No, Jason
When I
was saying something. Jason, go ahead.
God,
Like Lisa, when I was working at Thomas Pink, I would buy like Allen Edmonds shoes, via the internet, because it was like, oh, it's the English thing to wear like Oxfords, and I'd wear them, and I'm like, I don't like. I feel like I should like these. I mean,
Yeah.
this is like this $500 shoe. I mean, I only paid whatever for it on eBay, but I'm like, I hated it. I hated the Oxford. I still, even like to this day, I don't even like Oxford. I don't like any dress shoe that
I'm usually in loafers
isn't a
too.
loafer. Yeah, it has to be a loafer or like a sneaker or a Croc, or I'm not doing it. And yeah, I was like, I don't know why. And then the moment I realized, okay, it's just because I don't like that shoe, I just stopped wearing it, to the point where I could have resold it. I actually just threw them in the trash.
You were just looking for loafers in
not
all the
even-
wrong places.
Not even selling it. You just or
So
giving it away. You threw it in the
I
trash.
just threw the Allen Edmond like Oxfords in the trash. I'm sure some homeless guy was pumped.
yes.
Yeah,
I mean,
like I just threw in the
Pump the
trash.
pigs.
go
I
ahead.
was
Sorry,
just
Aldous,
so
go ahead.
No.
Aldous, go ahead.
yeah.
To address that though, if I was in your position though, I wouldn't feel a sense of loyalty to keep wearing those Oxfords, even though I hated those Oxfords because I had those Oxfords. It's not really that for me. It's the correct analogy, I guess, would be if I had the Oxfords and I liked those Oxfords, but I saw a pair of Oldens, for example, and I immediately dropped the old Allen Edmonds right away for that, even though they're perfectly serviceable and
Well,
they look absolutely
And,
fine.
I don't think
fuck
any of
the
us
Allen
do
Edmonds.
that.
Yeah,
I
none of
do.
us do that.
I think
Okay, maybe Jason.
I kind of do. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, Spencer,
Like
go
I
ahead.
got Crocs and said fuck every other
Well,
shoe.
I was gonna say it's like, I mean, Ethan and I both, as we've said before, have spent a very long time developing taste. Well, not just like our personal taste and our personal sense of style. And so, I mean, it's like it's never been a case of me seeing. I mean, it's like I see stuff that I like better than clothes I have all the time. But
Exactly.
rather than saying it's like, oh, I need this, I examine, okay, what is it that I like better about this? And how can I best approximate that? Like, if it's out of my price range, how do I best approximate that with my budget?
And it's not like, Spencer's making it sound like there's a lot of calculations, but it really is like a split second kind of
No,
thing.
it's, yeah, it's like,
yeah, when you
it's
can
just like
see it.
a way of thinking that you develop.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. And, I mean, yeah, same thing here, right? I mean, I'm wearing what I'm wearing. This is great. And then maybe I'll see like an Orazio or something that's like worth double of what I'm wearing. It's like, that is better. But it's like, I don't think of like, oh, now I got to get that. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I mean,
Because,
it's like, I hate capitalism.
You've done this. I mean, you've done this all the time because it's like you found the Armory, you found Drake's, you found Alden's, and it was years before you got any of those like specific pieces from these
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, like it wasn't an immediate thing. I don't have this need of like, it's not like a transactional thing. And all this. I mean, after I say this, you can talk more about the the thought process here. But like, I whenever I see something new, I don't feel the need to immediately have it. I think none of us do that. None of us, think about like, oh, I just bought these Aldens. Wait, now there's fucking John Lobb. Oh shit! Like, no, we none of us think about it. I still wear things to their completion, because again, we are still smart about our credit cards. We're still smart about our jobs and our
Yeah.
money that we don't, we're not about to just waste stuff. Because I think, I see what you're saying. Like, to you it is a waste, and and if that was the immediate response, it would definitely be a waste. I 100% agree with that, but it's this idea that I have that as far as I know, my whole wardrobe is exactly what I want it to be. Again, I've kept things that I bought when I first started, and maybe I've made adjustments to them. Like I've ripped out shoulder pads from 1930s clothing just because I love them so much that I know I'm gonna wear them forever, and I want to make the steps I need to take in order for me to wear them forever. And I've given away, or MJ can be a very happy camper about that one. Given away things that I don't wear anymore, or selling them.
There's
You
really
know,
benefited from that one, from that thing.
yeah, exactly. And it's a common way of life that I think that it's almost impossible to be like 100% every single like right off the bat in terms of when you're acquiescing about something. Like I think that the only way to mitigate that is to literally be as open as possible, because that's how I learned. Like that's how I you know didn't go from fucking like Indochino all the time, because like as soon as I discovered Indochino, I didn't buy everything from Indochino. I got like one suit, and I still kept. I mean, I got like two, I think, and then I wore one of them as much as I could until I was finally done with it. When I realized I don't want to wear it anymore. Get the
When
fuck
it was
out of here,
falling apart at the
Recycle.
seams after like 2 wears.
Right.
But no, I gave it to my friends who maybe didn't see what I saw. Maybe they still they love it. Like they were like, "What's wrong with this? It's a good jacket." I'm like, "I just don't want to wear it anymore." And then here you go. And I think most of us have that. It's almost like you're letting your child go to college. Like you gotta let them be their own person.
You're
now,
doing a Toy Story
and-
3.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. But I'll just go
I
ahead.
don't wanna play with
Yes,
you
this is going to be
anymore.
slightly off topic, I think, but you guys have talked about how by this point in your style journey, with all the time you've put into it, you know exactly what you want for your wardrobes at this point.
Yeah, from
And
a split second.
and going off what I've contributed so far to this conversation, there might be the impression that I don't have even the foggiest idea of what I'd like, or I don't have a clear idea at all of what I like. But I don't think that's the case, and I guess I should just say what I do like then, to maybe
Or maybe
disprove
what
this
you
point.
don't like. Or maybe what you don't like.
No, I guess I'll just say my ideal suit. I like a 3-roll T jacket with 1/4 inch pick stitching, triple patch pockets, about lapels about 3.75 inches wide, cuffs
Whoa.
about 1.75 inches high, flat front trousers with drop loops perhaps, and a heavier weight fabric, generally speaking. Even some weight stuff. I don't think I'd like anything under 11 ounces per yard. So I do have an idea of what I like. It's not,
And that's more specific than me.
yeah, it's not that. So we haven't brought this up yet, but I think this didn't come up in the chat, but it's something from the this didn't come up in this chat, but it's something from our recent communications. It's not that it's not that it's not that I don't have an idea of what I'd like, and that's why I'm buying all sorts of things that I might grow up to regress, or I'm buying all sort things that don't really fit to that mold. It's just that I don't have as much of an attachment as perhaps you guys do to making sure that all my stuff fits that mold of perfection, fits that model of perfection.
Well,
I'm
I guess
fine with
yeah.
having variations on that theme. I have
I
an
mean,
idea.
even,
I just
even
don't.
I am too, but I think we've talked
And me
about that.
too.
Yeah, it's like there are a couple details that I prefer not to break, but I mean, if I'm not paying a whole lot for stuff, most of the time I'm pretty lean. Um,
Listen, if gender's fluid, then so is
but
my clothes.
it's
Hey,
just
you're there.
it's more so.
Alright.
It's also more so like a thing where I have limited closet space and I have less and less every time I buy a piece of clothing, and I really do have to consider it's like, hey, it's not like, oh, I mean, it's like I might not wear this a whole lot, but it's not much, so why not get it? No, do I want this taking up?
Right.
And same for me as well.
Well,
I
I
mean,
only
like,
wear morning dress, so I'm pretty
It's
open
true. With your
Yeah.
Crocs.
with my.
Hey, Ivan's here, baby. He can tell us all about wearing morning dress. You mad lad. But yeah, I think like Spencer said, like there are variances. Like obviously, you guys can still, oh yeah, you guys can still hear me. Sorry, but obviously a Spear and McKay jacket is cut different than a ring jacket. Even the ring jacket that I got in Japan is cut differently than my ring jacket from Ring Jacket USA.
Of course.
There's a lot of different stuff there. I mean, maybe you could argue that the only mitigating thing is the bottom button thing, because thankfully they all work with that. But there are variances, and I think that again, when you get to a stage where every purchase
This is
counts,
off topic,
whether,
Ethan, but I did find some ring jackets where the bottom button was actually not in line with the pocket.
and I
Oh,
wouldn't
shit.
own them. So I mean,
Get in
that's
the
just what
ring.
but the idea here is that like we've gotten to a stage where um we have all these things where every purchase counts. Everything we do, like, don't get us wrong, we do think about stuff in terms of income. We do think about stuff in terms of closet space, but all these things are so inherent to us now that we can just decide in a quick second whether it's worth it or not. And I think Spencer and I can both say that we are pretty much very happy with our clothing. I mean, Spencer's, over the years has gotten rid of a lot more than I have, because he made the full transition out, maybe not the full, but like going from tailoring to, kind of a rugged Ivy Millsip kind of thing. And that took a lot of selling
He
off
did the
things that
full
were
Monty.
perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Right, Spencer? Like they
Yeah,
were
exactly.
perfectly serviceable.
And it's like almost
but-
it's like when I sell stuff, most of the time I've sold a couple things like to friends or online or whatever and made a profit.
Shout out MJ&J.
Most of the time when I sell stuff, I just bring it to a vintage store and get store credit, because you know what? I'm probably going to find something I like with that, even if I know I'm losing money. It's replacing
to be
other things.
clear though, the issue for me was not getting rid of stuff that you don't wear anymore or doesn't fit your style anymore. I think you should actually. If there's something in the closet that's just taking up closet space and you can never see yourself wearing ever again, you should get rid of it. That's what you should be doing. The issues I brought up were replacing something. It's not that you don't have a need for it anymore. It's the idea of upgrading and when you would
so
upgrade.
you're talking about just getting something new to upgrade something that hasn't worn out, that isn't bad, quote unquote, per se. It's just,
it hasn't worn
hey,
out.
I
It
just
isn't
want a
bad per
newer,
se.
nicer.
Bad to
Oh, you're
Ethan or
talking
bad
about my
to
jeans game.
I just want a new and nicer version of something I'm wearing a lot already. I don't. I'm wary of that.
Well,
Kiyoshi, what are your thoughts on that?
having gone through that with tuxedos, and considering I only wear a tuxedo maybe once a year, and I currently have 4 of them.
Nice.
Or four that could be
What's that
considered
feel like?
black tie. They could be considered black tie. Like,
I don't have
for
any
someone that
tuxedos.
rarely does stuff like that. Yeah, I mean, I can't say it's a economically sound purchasing decision for me, but I will say that I really, really do like wearing those garments when I have the opportunity to.
Right.
And I think that is kind of what makes it worth it. Because even if you say upgrade or decide to get a new version of something that you already have that works perfectly just fine, I think that means that you found something that you actually enjoy wearing, and there isn't necessarily something preventing you from having more similar items like that to wear stuff that you like more often. Because you're probably like, even let's say you get like the coolest, herringbone tweed jacket that you found wherever. And you know what? You come across another one, you're like, hey, it kind of fits the budget. It is nicer. Maybe it's a little more expensive, but I like this a lot too. Yeah, sure. Maybe there's some overlap with your current wardrobe, but why not get it if it's not going to blow your bank account? Because Turns
Yeah,
out
exactly.
something might happen to that one favorite tweed jacket you have now,
Listen,
and you might
Well,
not be
then
able
I
to get
did. Well, then I
a
got the
sweet
other one at that
replacement
point.
in the
Yeah.
future.
yeah.
It's
Like
actually
I have
broken,
a
yeah,
horrible
replace it.
habit of buying multiples of anything I like.
You're like Larry
Like,
David
yeah,
in that one episode where he gets the same like the shirt 3 times.
yeah. Well, like the Weegians had the sale. I bought 3 of the exact same pair of Weegians. 3 of the
Yeah.
exact same pair of brown loafers.
I
'Cause I'm
won't do
like,
that.
Yeah,
I won't do
that's
that.
that's
fuck
kind
me
of the
up.
antithesis of what I.
But
But
I
I'd
mean, if
like
you wear
to.
them like 3 times a week,
I wear them like every day.
yeah,
Really
I
neat.
mean
But
You
I
that's
can
mean,
wear one
maybe
pair
that's-
3 times a week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
smart.
years.
It's like buying 3 different pairs of shoes, except you only wear one type of shoe. I mean,
Yeah, I
But
did
it's 3
also buy
pairs of the
other
same shoe,
pairs
though. That's
of
what
the
Jay's
shoe. I didn't just
specifically
buy
admitted.
3. I bought like 5 pairs total. But
Yeah. I mean, I think, maybe I'll just you think that, or let me go back. I think Kyoshi says right. I think if you have a jacket that you love very much, um, you're not upgrading because you probably won't even consider upgrading. I think that, we're not always on the lookout for something, but there are things that we think about that, won't be apparent to you until you find that thing that you might like better. Like Yoshi said, the Samuelson suits were great. Then you put on something else and it just fit better, that everything is better. And once you feel that difference, you gotta, maybe, you don't have to, but I mean, it's about whether your threshold for like, okay, you know what, I'm gonna make this thing because now I know I'm gonna like this other thing better, and if you've developed your taste enough where you can try on something else that's maybe made better or more expensive or whatever, and you don't feel that need, then you've made it. I feel like you've made it. I feel like, for me personally, if I tried on a ready-to-wear Orazio jacket or Liverano jacket from the Armory, I probably wouldn't even fathom trying to get it because I think that my Spear McKay one is perfectly fine. And I think that at a certain point, also, it's less about ready to wear and more like what are you going to make for yourself? Because at that point, then it's like, how does this maker fit you?
what
You
are you
don't
gonna
have to
make
think
for
about ready to
yourself
wear stuff
with a
anymore.
Tilly few?
Exactly.
I feel like
So
it's clear though that
that's the difference
calculation.
there.
Right, but it's a calculation for me. I'm not against the idea of upgrading. The fact that this jacket is serviceable wouldn't overcome everything. If I found another suit, for example, what do you say, Samuelson, and suddenly I discovered ring jacket, for example, and I really could afford this, a ring jacket which which represents better materials, better construction, better fit, better design, all sorts of being better in all sorts of different parameters. I would get the ring jacket, even if the Samuelson was still serviceable. It's a calculation at the end of the day, and I think I have perhaps a higher threshold.
I
Than
mean,
you
I
guys
think
do.
you just put more value on the utility than the rest of it. To some
I mean,
extent.
yeah,
Right.
I mean,
Because it's
like,
like
that's
Yeah,
why you can't. Yeah,
like I wear a lot of military surplus, but because I think it's cool that it is practical and you can, but I'm not wearing it because of that. I'm wearing it because I think it's cool that it is that. Like I
yeah.
don't know if that makes
Exactly.
sense, but it's not for
It doesn't
the
have to make sense. It does.
Yeah.
I think that's the whole idea about having taste. It doesn't have to. I mean, if you want to apply some of the similar logic, it's like if Spencer thinks that's cool, a jacket that doesn't have those details is uncool. I mean, I feel like you could make that argument, but it's about having that idea that kind of guides our purchases too. It's like at the end of the day, do you want to be the guy wearing the Samuelson jacket or the guy wearing the ring jacket? You just have to think for yourself that. And if you're okay with staying with the one you want, then that's fine. But if you all of a sudden you have this need, to look at like that, the ring jacket thing, or it could be, you've finally unlocked that taste. It's like then you're not dressing like the way you want to dress, and that's something that I've always said before, where I maybe like, oh, this is a little sneak peek of the new episode coming out on for my birthday on Monday. But it's like we
Happy
talk about me
Christmas.
wearing the Gatsby suit, right? And it's like at that time, it's like I'm wearing a Gatsby suit in the sense of I'm wearing like a white jacket with white odd trousers. They're not matching, but it's like at that time, it's like what, like this is what I thought. And then when I saw like maybe like a Palm Beach, it's like no, that's what I had in my head, like because I mean even when I saw the Gatsby one, I had seen like 1920s, 30s pictures, and this is like the best of what I got. But when you see that, it's like, oh man, like that's literally like what it is. You can't just verbalize it. It's just an inherent feeling that you feel cooler and that's what you want to be. So of course you're going to take steps to look like that. It's like maybe you don't want to be married, right? And there's a lot of movies about that kind of thing. In 500 Days of Summer, right, where Summer doesn't want to be married, she's like scared of commitment, or she just doesn't want to commit to Tom, and then she finds that one person where all of a sudden she's engaged, she's getting married, all this kind of stuff, which she didn't do before, and it's again about opening your mind to be open, to be open to those experiences where I personally I feel a lot of these things, not with you all this, but a lot of people who are maybe hesitant on upgrading or trying new things is because they're the possibilities aren't as they're not open to all the possibilities out there. And for me, in terms of my purchasing stuff, because I'm so picky, I will not. I have a really wide berth, and I won't buy it till I get
I
that
have a
kind of
wide
thing,
girth.
which is what. Yeah, exactly. Right?
Yeah.
But it prevents me from again having that idea where where I won't be in your shoes. I don't think I've been in your shoes, where I'm like, oh man, but I had this thing and it's just fine. I can't fathom like upgrading. I just got this thing, which I don't do. I don't buy something immediately after. But I think my first Hopsack jacket was some Suit Supply, and I bought it because it was on sale. I think it was like maybe like 15% off. I don't know what it was, but I bought it because I never had a Hopsack jacket, never had a wide lapel modern jacket before. Couldn't
It's
find one on
fine.
vintage, so I kind of
good.
did it. Maybe, but I knew that I wanted the 3-roll too. I knew that that would be better. I wanted I wanted it to be better, and every time I wore it, it was like, yeah, it's fine, but it's not the Ethan I see in my head, and that's something I've written about. If Double-Breasted Racecoat wants to look at like in the blog and everything, I think a common theme is I've always had this idea of what Ethan looked like, but it was about finding the right words, if we call it vocabulary in terms of clothing, it's about finding what that means. And I don't want to be in a position where I cannot express myself the exact way I want to. And that is why I'm so picky. But even if that's the case, I still have a great wardrobe where I can definitely be like, this is it, man. Like this is where it's at. And of course, some things should be upgraded. I mean, I have like red. I wore this I think last week, a couple of weeks ago, where I wore red cotton linen HBT trousers from Banana Republic. They have it's moderate rise on them. They have a kind of a straight full, like not a full leg, but a straight, slim straight leg ish. And I think that they're fine. I will still wear those things until they fall apart. But I would be remiss to say that if I could attain those in double pleated, higher rise side tab trousers, immediately I would jump on that. With wardrobe with what do you call it, money permitting. And so, but the thing is, something like that, I know that is a higher taste. I probably won't find that ready to wear. So I'm totally fine not having it because I am patient. Because I refuse adamantly. If you want to say this is more important, I hate buyer's remorse more than a buttoning point that goes beyond the pocket line. So that is how I take myself out of the equation for being disappointed by those things, or maybe not disappointed in the moment, but in more like your shoes, I refuse to be in your shoes. Where like, oh man, now I have to upgrade. I won't be in that position because I feel like I've gotten to that point where even if I had the higher thing, maybe I wouldn't do it. Wardrobe or money permitting.
Well, to be clear, I also wouldn't like to upgrade too. If I was perfectly, I have less experience than you guys, and I've been into this for not as long, so
I
I
don't
do make
think.
mistakes that I regret about.
Yeah.
I have more. I have some things that I do regret, but I would like to avoid it. It's not like I've accepted it and I'm fine with doing it that way. Ideally, I'd be able to pick the stuff out and have it right the first time. But also, I don't think I have to adhere as closely to my ideals as you might even to in order to be truly satisfied. As I said earlier, I did define what makes a good suit for me, and I think you guys also said that it might be more specific than what your idea of a perfect suit is even.
I mean, they
Um,
probably are. We probably do have those things, but we just eyeball it instead of like verbalize it or write it down.
Well, this comes
Yeah,
from
I
being
go by
supposed to
my
be
balls. I really feel it.
this
Yeah.
comes from being an MTM boy where you actually have to give them measurements and stuff, exact specifications.
So
But
do
I,
I.
I think I'm more open to the idea of not exactly fulfilling that mold, and I can still see stuff that doesn't fulfill that mold, perhaps to a point that even thinks I'm not being true to myself, but it still feels true to myself, in spite of the differences. And I think that's where we might differ.
Yeah, I refuse to not be myself. I
But
have a higher. Yeah. You said it. I have a higher standard for what I want to look like, but it's not limiting. So I feel
Well,
like my point is you can have those things without, without.
yeah,
I would add like one thing though,
Go
like
ahead.
I get it's great that like in Ethan's instance he has an idea of this ideal Ethan that he wants to dress and buys accordingly. But I feel like a lot of people aren't as advanced along in that idealism of themselves or fully know what they like and to have those strong opinions that influence their buying decisions. So I think it will take, Aldous, you mentioned you would prefer not to buy things that you regret buying. I
Yeah,
think
it's
that
true of all of us, I think.
unfortunately you're going to have to do a little bit of that along the way. It's going to be, I
Agreed.
feel, almost inevitable, and you
Yeah,
are
you're right.
going
It's inevitable.
to spend money on stuff that you lose money on
Yeah.
I
because you
have
don't enjoy
buyer's
it. I
remorse
definitely,
until the
yeah.
moment the thing arrives,
So,
Yeah,
I feel
what's
like
not feel,
that's
Jason?
inevitable,
and I love it.
it just
Yeah, I
takes
think
time to get there.
Kiyoshi, you're 100% correct. I mean, you know, I went through it literally. I mean, that's I use myself. That's why I share all those bad pictures of myself to kind of further that notion. But I mean, if we're talking about me dictating things again, that is probably the biggest thing, to look at yourself as critically as I do in order to make sure that you look exactly the way you want. So to avoid that kind of thing, because I think, if I had a
You're
commandment, I would say,
liberated.
please do not have buyer's remorse. Please, and I think
Yeah.
along the way,
Yeah,
you pick up a lot of
agree with
stuff.
that.
It's about confidence in what you're wearing. It's about confidence in your purchases. And obviously, I feel like, as much as I talk about this, I'm sure my taste is going to change in the future. I don't know if it's going to be about the buttoning point specifically, but I'm sure I mean, yeah, both me and you have been working in the industry, and I'm sure we're both going to go buy some stuff. I mean, a lot of other makers make a lot of great stuff that you want to try that maybe you've never tried before. But again, that's kind of the point here, where I want people to look at them, to look at themselves, and to see. Spencer and I have talked about, like, what our number one piece of advice is for people starting out. And again, we don't like to be that person you come to for that, because we are definitely not in that same headspace or same state of their menswear journey. But our number one thing is to get as much inspiration as possible. Look at literally every person you can think of. Look at 1930 stuff. Look at 40s. Look at 60s. Look at Taylor Cade. Look at the Armory. Look at everyone. Look at Salman Amo. Look at all these guys and see exactly what you want. Like, learn and internalize it as much as possible. Where
Yeah,
then
that's
you can
very sage advice, Ethan, and it's I've always admired you when you said that. It's
yeah.
yes, to find yourself is to determine yourself as soon as you possibly can.
Exactly. I mean,
And that way you can mitigate buyer's remorse as much as possible. The faster you get that, the less of the buyer's remorse, I suppose.
Amen. And of course, like Matt and you have said, sometimes at certain points you're gonna want something that doesn't fit, and that's okay. I mean, again, this is just dirtbag left Ethan using bad to as a blanketing term here, but it's just, I believe that you should never wear anything that you just don't like, that you don't like, and it will definitely affect you. I mean, there are certain things where someone looks at something and they're like, you know what, like, I can't unsee it now. And for me, and again, like all the people on my Instagram, our guy Sam Wade in our Facebook group has also said something where, like, this is something people look at. I am not alone in this sentiment. I just, people have this internalized where they have this in there and they won't accept anything less. And I don't think that any of these people feel that it is limiting to their wardrobe. Maybe you want to call it, maybe a little too picky or a little too, broad strokes for certain things. But people have this
Different folk.
idea of what they want to look like from different people from all stars and stripes, and it's if you can figure out what that breaking point is for you as soon as possible, you will. Don't thank me for it, but thank yourself. I mean, that way, whenever you're buying something, you're always gonna have to look at yourself and wonder what you were thinking in that moment. What was your threshold for it? What was all that kind of thing? And it is my hope that if you do make the mistake, you're not too hard on yourself on it. I think, again, I'm at a stage where I can roast myself regularly for making those bad decisions. And that's also the point of me sharing all those things, because I take jest in all that kind of stuff. I might sound like a hardliner, but if you know me and see, how I talk and everything, I'm like totally cool with stuff. Again, even if I'm
Yeah,
not the one,
you are.
it's totally
It's
fine.
Okay,
One-
cop.
That's-
I'm totally cool with stuff.
Yeah, totally.
Where's your button stance?
yeah.
Get on the
I mean,
ground.
if you ask me, obviously, I'm going to say I do not like your jacket. I mean, I might, if you're a newbie, I won't be as
Yeah, your
blunt
jacket
about it,
cut.
but I will. Yeah, I mean, I'm the cuck. That's my favorite word.
I mean, maybe the
But,
compromise here is rather than saying I don't like your jacket, saying I personally would not wear that jacket.
which I also say, I won't wear your jacket because it's a bad jacket. I mean, that is just the way I talk. All my friends know
Right.
that I talk like this all the time. I mean, we can talk about how much I hate fucking Michael Giacchino and Spencer and MJ. Everyone knows that kind of thing. People get really riled up when I say I don't like the score to Rogue One, and there's a lot of. I mean, let's okay, but you know, I mean, it's that's just the way I am. And
I'm gonna get
again,
my
you're
friend
feel free to
Michael in
have.
here, who's friends with
I mean,
Michael.
Huh.
but I mean, it's kind of, you know, again, it's just a difference of a thing. And I hope it is my hope that when people watch this or read the blog or listen to podcasts, that if they don't dress the way we want to, it's totally fine, dude. I'm totally chill. If you ask me about it, I will tell you. But you know, more often than not, people look fucking great. People look really cool. I mean, I don't give a shit. Like it's just, you know, I don't write about like I'm not doing style coverage and I'm like, oh man, I gotta write for like Vogue and write about everyone's outfit. I'm always gonna
No,
write about what I'm wearing.
no.
Oh, that's
You
great.
know?
Come back in 10 years and imagine if Ethan's doing that.
Yeah, I would and off the camera I'd be like, man, I fucking hate this job. I gotta lie to people.
Okay, that's for real
yeah.
how I feel about buying for like the stores. Is like I have to sit here and look at these like wholesale companies in the face and go, yeah, I really like this, and I leave going, what the fuck was that garbage?
I mean, I've
After
also
I
worked in
gave him an
sales.
order.
I mean, you know, like again, whenever someone talks to about the stuff, if they ask me my opinion, I will always tell them why. But then the thing is, I always tell them if this is what makes you happy, if you're not gonna regret any of this, if you can confidently tell me that, then you should fucking get it, dude. I
No
think that
regret, baby.
if you can say that, that is fucking admirable, and that's something that I live my life by. And I'm sure Spencer does too, and most of us do it to a certain degree. You know, when it's like when you love it, you fucking love it. You know, some people love fucking Zoolander as like the greatest film of all time, and that's perfectly fine.
I
You
mean,
know,
it's
that's
pretty
great,
good.
and it's funny. You know, I
It's
think that's kind of what it is. You know, and I
nothing
think
beats
you
that
know to
gas
go back
fight.
to what we talked about, me and all just in our one of the best or most listened to podcast episodes is that near the end of it we talk about how whether or not you'd eat McDonald's or a steak, and
Right.
like which one would you pay money for, if you only had a certain budget amount. And my answer was I'd rather eat, McDonald's. But if I can clarify that looking back now, is that whenever I do eat McDonald's, I love McDonald's. Like it's not like that whole, I'm sure Spencer can probably say like, sometimes for him, McDonald's is like, I got to eat it real quick before class. It's a cheap thing because I didn't have enough stuff or whatever. But for me, when I make the conscious decision to eat McDonald's, I love it. And that is something that if I can confidently say about everything, then
You're loving it.
I don't have buyer's
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
remorse. I don't, me eating like me wearing sweatpants. I don't think that I look fucking lazy or like a slob. I'm like, I'm fucking wearing sweatpants, baby. That's what it is.
Well, I guess if
Anyone
I
else
was putting
got
myself
stuff?
in that, if I was going to put myself in that last analogy, between McDonald's and steak, it would ultimately end up being a value calculation for me, and depending on which one seems to represent
value
the
meal.
better value, I'd
Hmm.
pick that one. But that's also because I'm not particularly attached to either one of the options.
I
Either one
mean,
of the
that's true. I'm sure
Yeah.
that you have. I mean, there's a different analogy for you. I'm sure.
Yeah. So, but
Guess
again,
Tim
you have
Hortons maybe
you have
for the
things, but
McDonald's.
no, it's not even that. It's I don't see.
Marks
I
and
don't. I
Spencer.
don't think you can find the restaurants that I feel like I need to go to eat at because it defines my personality. Whereas Ethan might have that with fast food. Would I be right in saying that, Ethan? Um, um,
Like you do McDonald's. I mean, nuggets are great. So.
Oh my god, nuggets, baby.
I mean, it's like I think I should
Oh,
also be clear. Like Ethan probably talks about McDonald's a lot because one that's like less than a quarter
that
mile
is
away from
true.
his
That is
house.
very true.
I have
So
one literally like next to my apartment.
yeah,
I mean, to be clear though, I mean, if we're talking about context for this weird thing that I always get called out on, is that I eat a lot of like leftover food. I mean, coming from an Asian household, you cook a lot of food and you eat that for like the whole week or at least a couple of days. So having a piece like nuggets or something, is like a way of not eating what you're default. And again, my whole base of my personality is I don't want to ever feel like I'm defaulting to something. I want to make it feel like it's a lazy choice. So if I can eat McDonald's it's cool because I like McDonald's. And I'm like, you know what? I feel like eating McDonald's right now. And that is, again, the lesson of I live my life, the
I feel
intersection
like
of
having
me and my
crippling stomach
philosophy
pain.
with all that kind of stuff. I don't get stomach pain from McDonald's. So I'm not sure
I
where
don't
that's
really
coming
either.
from.
But is there a sense,
I feel
Ethan,
heavy
that if you went
afterward,
to eat steak, you would be sort of being untrue to yourself in a way, even if it did represent a value proposition?
No, I fucking love steak. I eat steak. I mean, this is kind of sad.
Okay, then
but
replace
I,
steak with
look at-
something that you don't isn't you, like
Man, I eat
fancy
steak like
Michelin
every
starred
day.
restaurant.
It's a problem.
I
With your
mean,
Negroni.
even if you call like what I eat, would I rather eat like fast Chinese food versus a steak? I would pick the steak because I don't particularly eat a lot of fast Chinese food. I mean, it's not like a thing I think about. So I mean, it always will go. But I mean, again, the thing is, you find whatever that analogy is, and then you pick the thing that's you. I mean, that's because things are never going to be exactly the same. I mean, I love steak and I love McDonald's. I mean, if I could, I'd have both. I mean, I could literally have both because, McDonald's is so cheap.
What's your
And
oyster, baby?
well, oh yeah, I
Yeah,
don't. Oh, yeah,
America.
I think that's true. I don't eat seafood. So, if that was a choice, I would not pick seafood because I don't eat a lot of seafood. But as Kiyoshi
Oh, I
knows,
suck with seafood.
FBAs don't eat a lot of seafood. They don't eat shellfish. Am I right, Kiyoshi?
I think we should steer the conversation back because we're rapidly becoming
I eat a
food
lot of
podcast.
Oh, this is a first departure.
Well, I also do want to point out that it's 10:08 p.m.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't have
Ethan's
anything going
getting
on
hungry.
tonight, but do we want to? I mean,
For the folks at home.
what do we have left to discuss? Because is this something?
I mean, yeah. Again, I mean, I could sum this up. It's. I know this the first half of this talks about like the button placement and everything, but that is really just an example of the way I look at clothing as whether or not it is worth it for a purchase. Because at the end of the day, you are the one making the purchase. You are the one who's going to wear it. And if it doesn't bother you like Algis, then by all means do it. Because I am definitely certain that Algis is going to love this deck. I mean, it looks great on him. I'm not. When I say again, you could maybe the other thing is Ethan has a lot
I'd
of
fuck him.
semantics. Or whatever, but I mean that's just the way I talk. But I mean at the end of the day, again, it is about when you look at your mind's eye and what comes up and what is the thing you're wearing. If you can get as close to it, if not literally wear what that is, you should do it. And that is again the way that Spencer and I have done. Again, we are maybe we know because we are younger than Kiyoshi. Maybe our approaches are might be a little bit different or we're a little bit further along. But I have hoped that Spencer and I have done enough mistakes and enough exploring that we're kind of where we are. And I'm very grateful to the fact that I've gotten to be in the menswear industry and vintage collecting where I have been exposed to a lot of things now where I'm able to kind of define my taste. I mean, it is my hope at a 25-year-old, which might sound the most idealist, most stupid thing I can say, but I feel like I would be dressing like this for years to come. My casual style has changed a lot, which I'm sure you guys know, but my tailoring has largely been very close to what it is. I mean, maybe again, the difference could be the fact that something is from the 30s, something is from the 60s, but overall, the button placement is right. The 3-roll 2 is right there. The wide lapel is there. The spear point collar is there. The foulard with the exact kind of spacing on the thing is there. The high-waisted trouser with a slightly full cut is there. It's all there. And I am very fortunate to kind of get to that point. And so in reading my blog, listening to the podcast, watching these streams, is that, is my hope that you find whatever that is for you. You take the introspection because again, something that we didn't get into, maybe we can get into it next week, is that All just has kind of like a list of things that he looks at, an idealized wardrobe where, taking off a thing off that checklist provides serotonin, is a great step in that direction. Personally, for
like
Spencer and I, we
that.
don't. What?
Yeah, we can talk about that next week. But yes, it always boils down to lists to me. I have this small script.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think that
You're like Liam Neeson.
Spencer and I. Yeah, we don't
love
have.
lists.
Yeah, you love lists.
I like going through checklists. I'm a very boring. I make a perfect accountant. Anyway,
You're like Ben Affleck in that way. The accountant.
All right, hold on a second. Double waistcoat. This is an Onision-free zone. I'm gonna put my foot down. Let's not bring Onision up. I know we're at the end here, but come on.
doesn't belong
Yeah,
in this
but
account.
again, I think that again, diametrically, all just compared to at least Ethan and Spencer and
Diametrically
maybe whatever, it's that, even though it seems that I have a higher, a lot of stuff I think about, a lot of our purchases are very emotionally charged, very aesthetically charged, and we don't have the same kind of specific transactional value propositions that we do, because at the end of the day, we want to look aesthetically the way we want to, fit the way aesthetically we want to. And my point is that that's okay. You don't have to, sit around and and you don't have to feel like you're succumbing to something. You don't have to feel like, well, this is the closest thing there. I think that maybe I'll just I personally, if we were talking about opinions, because that's all I have, I'd be very weighted. He would find another jacket that would have more of the things that he considers closer to his ideal sleep standard. Obviously, the threshold for his purchases is less because he clearly bought this one, and it will serve him well, presumably until it falls apart, because all this doesn't seem like he will upgrade it.
He's a
But
hoarder.
who knows? In the future, he will get to that stage as he continues along this journey, and having this journey is totally okay. Again, please introspect and look at as much of that stuff, because I would hate
Just remember to love
for
yourself and love others.
I would hate for you guys to kind of go through the same kind of buyer's remorse, because honestly, having buyer's remorse is very detrimental to mental health. It can even turn you off from getting into menswear.
Oh, I'm always
And
turned
a lot
on.
of people connect buyer's remorse and stuff. And the reason why they mitigate that is the reason why they have like the capsule wardrobe. And maybe that should be the topic for next week, because we don't believe in the capsule wardrobe. We don't, at least
Wardrobe
most of us
sheet.
don't do
Kind of a
that.
blanket statement, but okay.
Well, I mean, most of us are, again, hey, all black statements are all I have. And if you have for our post it, then feel free to get on here, and which we will do, and we can talk about it, because I think that the way Spencer and I have worked out is that we don't have a capsule wardrobe, but a lot of stuff we wear work harmoniously with each other inherently, and that again comes from the fact that we know our style individually, right? And I'm pretty sure to say that Spencer and I could be dressed for any
Taste,
occasion,
baby.
whether it's corporate, formal, semi-casual, summer party, whatever, and not be at a loss. So
Yeah.
get to fashion nirvana, boys. That is where it's at.
This will probably at some point, maybe in the more distant future, turn into a feature-length podcast episode. I mean, I guess post, but
Right.
And then a movie.
but again, this is something that
And then a movie,
has
yeah.
been on his mind for a very long